Violence is unfortunately an inevitable challenge faced by society, and the roots of this violent and hostile behavior in humans have been debated for centuries. As humanity evolved, those who killed others may have had advantages obtaining resources, gaining status, and mating with others. This is also the case for other mammals who exhibit conspecific, that is interspecies, lethal violence. Organizing millions of species of animals in the context of evolution can be complex and problematic. The phylogenetic tree is a solution that scientists have utilized to represent the evolutionary relationships between different species of organisms. A phylogenetic tree is a tree-shaped diagram, with branches representing the lineage of a species and nodes, where the branches are formed, representing a speciation event where new species form from a common ancestor. Gomez and al. Treat lethal violence in animals and humans as an adaptation, meaning it is genetically heritable and can increase the survival and reproduction of those who carry it. This means that according to their results, conspecific violence in humans has evolved through natural selection. It is genetically encoded and variable in the population. More humans are born than can survive in the population, and it causes differential survival and reproduction rates for people who possess different alleles and therefore phenotypes of violence.
To estimate the percentage of lethal violence in mammals, computer searches were conducted looking for keywords related to the study, such as infanticide or death. They gathered information from a wide range of mammalian species and, for each mammal, recorded if the species is territorial or social. This data was then used to create a model predicting levels of lethal violence in humans based on their position in the phylogenetic tree. To calculate the actual values of human lethal violence, the authors analyzed 600 human populations from various ages and socio-political organizational systems. A variety of sources were used, including statistical yearbooks, ethnographic records, and verbal autopsies. To compare the phylogenetically expected values and the observed ones, the authors took 800 random samples from each period and socio-political organization and compared them to the 800 random samples of the phylogenetic values obtained from the model, documenting if these values were lower or higher. They then tested these values using a binomial test to see if the differences were within the standard deviation.
This figure depicts the relationship between rates of conspecific killings among mammalian species as it relates to their social and territorial behavior. N represents the number of species within each category. The percentage value is an average of the individual rates among member species of this category. The blue line represents non-territorial species and the orange represents territorial species. Towards the left of the graph are social species and solitary species are found on the right. While solitary species and non-territorial species generally have lower rates of lethal aggression, social species and territorial species have markedly higher rates of lethal aggression. In this figure, phylogenetic inference was used to calculate the average rate of human lethal aggression to be approximately 1.9% of all deaths. After considering the human traits of sociability and territoriality, the rate of lethal human violence was calculated to be approximately 2.1% of all deaths. N signifies that 100 samples were used during calculations, and the blue bars represent data provided by Fitz et al., while the orange bars represent data from Forby and Spenning. The rate of human lethal aggression for each category is displayed as a percentage. Humans are social and territorial beings, and both traits result in higher conspecific violence due to the increased proximity and competition among members of the same species.
In concordance with these discoveries, recent research has shown that a suggestive polymorphism within a gene that encodes for neural adhesion protein CDH13 has been linked to an extremely violent phenotype, criminals convicted of at least 10 aggravated violent crimes, as well as a variety of psychological disorders and substance abuse. This demonstrates a gene-by-environment interaction in which substance abuse makes people genetically predisposed to violence and mental illness. Also, as described in class, modern elephants evolving from the Paleomastodon display increased tusk growth, which is indicative of increased conspecific violence for social dominance as well as self-defense. It's rational to assume that if a population has acquired characteristics that allow for greater aggressiveness, then that population has likely evolved to use that characteristic to its full potential, in this case an aggressive manner. Although the exact roots of violence were not researched through this particular study, it does offer insight into how our place in the phylogenetic tree has played into our level of violence and demonstrated the fluctuations in these violence levels due to socio-political and economic factors throughout recorded history.